Well, Broncos country, it is like a bad case of deja vu week in and week out. Hello, everyone. Welcome inside Upon Further Review with B. Marsh and Michael, presented by Underdog Fantasy. Glad to have you with us this week. And I feel like we say it every week, Brandon. It feels like we wish it were under better circumstances. Broncos coming off a 16-9 loss to the Jets. Let's jump right into the show. Tell you what's on Marshall's mind. What's on Marshall's mind brought to you by Breckenridge Distillery, the official bourbon of the Denver Broncos. Shop Colorado retailers for their limited edition Broncos Bourbon Blends. B. Marsh, what you got?
I don't have anything. I'm going to be honest with you.
You're like Brett Rippon up on the podium. Brett, what's wrong with the offense? I don't know. I literally
don't have any. It's literally the same thing week in and week out, right? I mean, I don't know what could fix the offense. The defense is doing their part, holding them to 16 once again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, under 17 points, that's the threshold that we continue to speak of. And the offense just can't get it together. I mean, they scored a touchdown, a rare sighting yesterday.
Yeah.
They scored a touchdown, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know where this team can go. They're talking about, selling, instead of trying to compete now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, trade deadline coming up, and obviously we'll get to that. But you mentioned it, the lack of inability to score on offense. And Brandon, there was a sense of, like, hope when Brett Rippon was announced that he was going to be the starter. Obviously, you don't wish for injury. But the thought was, okay, maybe Brett Rippon comes in and plays well. And then maybe it becomes Russell's fault that this offense is not playing well. Well, guess what? It's not all on Russell. Yeah. I thought Russell Wilson had a great day yesterday because he stood there on the sideline and got to watch the offense continue to be inept. And now all of a sudden the fingers that were pointing at Russ, in my mind, are now pointing at Nathaniel Hackett. And I made this point last night on air on All Access. I think Nathaniel Hackett needs to fire himself from his play calling duties, because what we saw last night was that you can change quarterback and the offense remains the same. Now it's incumbent on the play caller to fire himself in this case when it's Nathaniel Hackett, because if there were a head coach who just had an offensive coordinator, I think the head coach would be firing the offensive coordinator right now, and I think that's what Nathaniel Hackett needs to do.
No, I agree with you as far as, I think when you say we had some hope, when Brett Rippon was going to start, I think we were just looking for answers.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Okay, let's make the picture more clear, and it's still muddy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is more clear in the aspect of, okay, whose fault is it? And it is, Nathaniel Hackett's fault. So, hopefully he can put his pride to the side. Yeah. Right? Do it for your family. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the point.
Because you're going to get fired.
At this point, he's going to get fired at the end of the season anyway.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that, I think they will explore, letting him go, because they paid so much to Russell Wilson, right? So they're tied to him. So it's not like they're going to say, all right, well, let's give Nathaniel Hackett another year. It looks so bad that I think they have to make a change, and Nathaniel needs to make it himself before they pull the plug on him.
I think it's the best way he can go about saving his job right now. Yeah. With the 2-5 team that has lost 4 straight games, I think he's got to be humble enough to say, you know what we're doing offensively isn't working. And it's not just one game, Brandon. I mean, they came out, you go into a game with your backup quarterback. Yeah. You can't ask him to throw the ball 46 times. I think that's unrealistic. And yes, that number's a little bit inflated because 16 of those passes came on the final 2 drives. But you can't ask your backup quarterback to throw the ball 46 times. And then what are you doing at halftime? Yeah. The Broncos have scored 3 offensive points in the third quarter this season.
The adjustments are terrible.
What? They
have no adjustments.
Are they making adjustments?
They have no adjustments. And it's crazy because the defense on the other side, they're making adjustments, right? When they play the Chargers, all right, Russell Wilson started off great, okay? The offense looked great, but clearly the Chargers made an adjustment, and the Broncos thought, okay, we can just continue to do our thing. Now, when it stops working, okay, are you on the sideline talking to your players? What are you seeing, Russell? What are you seeing, Brett? Offensive coordinator, what are you seeing up in the booth? Let's change something. And I'm not sure if they're telling him, like, yo, Hackett, I think this is open, right? This part of the field is open. This is whatever's open. And he's not seeing it, he's not, calling the plays, that'll help it. But all I'm saying is it's abysmal, It's terrible. It's inept. It's all the words you can think of. Yeah. Whatever you want to say, it's bad and needs to be fixed.
Second half drives yesterday in that game: punt, 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 interception, punt, turnover on downs, turnover on downs. That's what the Broncos offense did. And then from a play calling perspective, on 4th and 3, you only need 3 yards. Why are you throwing a bomb down the sideline? You don't need that. Can we get a crossing route that goes 4 yards and picks you up a first down?
Yes.
And just
and that scheme right there.
Yes.
And that scheme. Now, because when I watched that play, right, I'm like, okay, I don't really see any motion, any window dressing to make maybe the backers move out of the window, right, and then throw a dig right behind it, because that's what we need, okay? We need, if you watch the 49ers and the Chiefs, there's motion going across, behind the line of scrimmage. It's moving the linebackers, and then there's a dig right here or a slant. He hit him, he's open, right? Their play calling, the play selection is so basic and so easy. I mean, it's not hard to stop, man. It's just not.
And at the end of the day, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like the window dressing, it all evolves to a relatively simple scheme.
Yeah.
And simple, but you do things to get people's eyes moving. It's not like it has to be that hard. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room in order to draw up some plays that confuse the defense.
Right. And look, you see it all over the league. There's times that the quarterback catch the ball, the running back will be here, or maybe Tyreek Hill will motion this way, somebody come back the other way, and it's getting the underneath droppers to move so a window can open. That's all you have to do. You know what I'm saying? And on that 4th and 3, look, I get it, give your guy a shot, but no.
Well, and especially with a backup quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't you want to try and simplify things for him and make them easy and get him some short throws and get him in rhythm? And then you finally, just their inability to move the ball. It's just almost at a loss for words. And it's funny that we're sitting here and we're at a loss for words. Okay, it's one thing for us to be at a loss for words. It's really bad when the players don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And when the players don't have a fix. And that, to me, is really alarming, because we've sat here for 7 weeks now and said, what is going on with this offense? Can they fix it? And they have proven that they simply cannot. And they couldn't fix it in the 11 games between the Colts and in the 11 days between the Colts and the Chargers. Now they got to get on a plane to London and fly 8-9 hours, whatever it is, and then spend a week across the pond and try and get ready for the Jaguars. I said this last week. I don't see a fix. I don't see a solution other than Nathaniel Hackett turning the play calling duties over to somebody else.
And it's crazy that a Russell Wilson-led offense is last in the league in points per game.
14.2 points per game.
It is last in the NFL, and it's mind-boggling, right? And I want to go back and say again, Seattle looks good.
Yes,
Geno Smith is playing pretty good. Okay,
they put up a ton of points on the Chargers yesterday.
Absolutely. So it's not right here. Something's not right here. So. And I'm going to try to take the blame off of Russell, okay? And we're going to put it on,
that's fair.
Mr. Hackett.
I think that's fair, and I think that Nathaniel's got to do some soul searching on that long flight. And what do you want to do, and what do you want to be? And I think you're right. Man, you got to do it for your family, because at this point, you're a 2-5 football team. You're probably not even going to get a second year. I think the best option you have of saving yourself as a head coach and getting back for year 2, if you even get that far, if they don't fire you after the bye, would be to fire yourself as the play caller. Let somebody else call the plays. And then what? The contrary argument to that is, okay, so he brought in Jerry Rosburg to handle the game management situations. If he gives up the play calling duties, what does he do? You know what I mean? Like, how do you justify? Yeah.
Just overseeing
Which
stuff,
I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but you've admitted to people you can't manage the game clock, and now you're admitting you can't call plays.
Yeah. What do we need you for?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What do we need you for?
But you're not doing either one particularly well. So we'll see. I don't know that the Broncos make that move, but I think that's the smart move that they should make. Yeah. And if I'm George Payton, that's what I tell Nathaniel Hackett to do. Yeah. Because a lot of this is on George Payton right now. And people keep messaging me on Twitter saying, hey, when is the heat going to be turned up on George Payton? I think we're at that point.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy who hired Nathaniel Hackett. He's the guy who traded for Russ and gave him the big contract. Yeah. I think George Payton is deserving of a lot of blame right now. And if I'm George, I go to Nathaniel and I say, you were going to do this or we will fire you.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, it is what it is, right? Because George has to think about his family.
At the end of the day, George got to think about his family.
He got to think about his family too, right? So we all worried about, okay, look, I'm not going to let you mess it up for me.
Yeah.
And my family, I have to move my family to Buffalo or wherever I got to go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Across the country. I'm not trying to do that. It is what it is, right? So, I hope he makes that. I hope he sits there and say, you know what, I have to do this for the greater good of the team, my family, or whatever the case may be. Because right now my moves aren't looking good. His best move is probably Pat Surtain.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean his drafts have been really good.
Pretty good.
We'll give him that. And the Randy Gregory signing, if Randy Gregory can stay healthy, he was playing really good football before then. But his tenure as GM is going to be known by two things.
Yeah.
What he does with the head coach and what happens with Russell Wilson. And right now, both of those things look like really bad moves.
They're failing.
Yes. Yeah, he's getting an F grade. We haven't even gotten to our report card. We will get to our report card coming up in the next segment, and we'll talk about some moves that George Paton might make with the trade deadline approaching quickly. Should the Broncos be sellers, and if so, who should they move? We will discuss all that and more next right here on Upon Further Review with B. Marsh and Michael, presented by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. Welcome back inside Upon Further Review with B. Marsh and Michael, presented by Underdog Fantasy, and the NFL trade deadline coming up on November 1st. So 1 week from tomorrow, 2 days after the Broncos get back from London, 2 p.m. Mountain Time. We were talking about George Paton in the last segment. I think he is going to have a lot to do here in the next couple of days. So, Brandon, I'm going to make you the GM. Okay. We're going to play a little game. Trade him or keep him. I'm going to give you a Broncos player. You tell me if you're trading him or if you're keeping him. Okay. And then we will discuss whether or not I agree with your answers. Okay. Trade him or keep him. Number 1, Bradley Chubb. What are we doing?
I think you got to trade him.
Really?
I think you got to trade Chubb.
Why?
You got to trade Chubb because, I mean, first of all, you know, they don't want to pay him. Okay?
Right.
You have Baron Browning. You paid Randy Gregory. Baron Brown is up and coming as an edge rusher. Now, Bradley Chubb has been your best edge rusher, all right, for the last couple of years. But at the same time, right, you have guys behind him. They're trying to groom Nick Bonito. Is he there yet? Absolutely not. Right. But they're trying to get some draft capital, at least get some return for Chubb because, you know, I don't think they want to pay him. I think, you know, he's a liability injury-wise, and I say, you know, they have other guys, so I think they want to trade him. It
better be really high.
Yeah.
And if you get some high draft picks, then I'm okay with it. But I lean toward keeping Bradley Chubb right now. You mentioned Randy Gregory. I don't think you can trust Randy Gregory to stay healthy for the course of a season. You're seeing that right now while he's on injured reserve. Love the way Baron Browning's playing. He's now got a hip injury. We'll wait and see kind of what happens and what develops off that. Nick Bonito, he's not there yet. No. And so I think if you trade Bradley Chubb, that is the biggest white flag that you can send to your football team that you are throwing in the towel on this season.
100%.
What does that say in that locker room if you trade Bradley Chubb? How do the players react to that?
Oh, well, that means they know the front office is throwing in the white towel. You know, it's kind of like when we traded Demaryius Thomas, okay? So it's like it's kind of that same feel. It's like, oh, okay, well, we're you know, the season's over. Are we tanking? Not necessarily, but we're inadvertently tanking because we're sending our best players to other teams. Okay, so it's going to send a bad message to the locker room. The morale will go down, I promise you that.
Can you get a second-round pick for Bradley Chubb?
I think you can get a third round.
Yeah?
You can get a third round pick.
So no is the answer to my question?
You can get a third round pick,
See,
though.
and is a third round pick worth it when you can just franchise him? Because I'm with you. They don't want to sign Bradley Chubb to a long-term deal. Is a third round pick worth it, I think, is the question that you have to ask. If you get a second round pick, I think that's fair game.
Yeah.
I think that's fair
probably
game.
Worth it.
Trade him or keep him. Number 2, wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. What are we doing?
I'm going to go trade him.
Yeah.
I'll trade him again, you know, and I'm sure you agree with me on this because, you know, he hasn't flourished in Denver, right? He has great routes, okay? He can get open. Can he catch the ball? That's a little So I feel like he almost doesn't fit here. You know, he almost doesn't fit in Denver. It seems like the aura and the vibe around Jerry Jeudy is he needs to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
He'll be happier. I'm sure he'll make more plays. So if you can get something from Jerry or for Jerry, you know, I think you should. You already got, you know, Tim Patrick signed long-term, Cortland Sutton, it'll open it up for KJ Hamler. So I think you trade him.
I'm with you on that. And I thought that this was going to be the year where Jerry Jeudy was really going to flourish with Russell Wilson. And obviously we've seen all the videos of Jerry and his route running and all that is so great. And Chad Johnson, losing his mind on social media as he watches that. Yeah. But it hasn't translated into really good football. Yes, Jerry had a good game yesterday. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. But I'm with you. I think you trade Jerry Jeudy. I think you can get a third-round pick for him. Yeah. Maybe I don't think you're getting anything higher. No. Maybe you have to go as low as 4, but I think you can. I think you should trade Jerry Jeudy and get some picks. Trade him or keep him. Number 3, Melvin Gordon.
I think you got to keep him.
At this point, you kind of have to.
You have to keep him. Javonte Williams is hurt. Boone looks like he's hurt. You don't know how long he's going to be out. So who's your bell cow back? It has to be Melvin. Latavius Murray, I think the jury's still out on him. Yes, he scored a touchdown yesterday, but Melvin's a home run hitter. So you have to keep him. Unfortunately, I know Broncos country probably wants Melvin gone. You could tell.
Broncos country wanted Melvin gone the day he got here.
Which is crazy, right? You see on Twitter, they hate Melvin, or they dislike, have a disdain for Melvin.
No, I think hate's the right word, actually, which is unfair to Melvin Gordon, in my opinion.
It's very unfair. So you have to keep him.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think you add, obviously, Marlon Mack from the practice squad of the 49ers, and now he's going with you over to London. But with the injury to Mike Boone and that looking fairly serious, I think you have to keep Melvin Gordon. And what's interesting is Melvin had 11 carries compared to just 8 for Latavius. I thought he ran hard yesterday. He ran to me like a guy who was upset that he wasn't getting the ball on Monday Night Football and like a guy who was trying to up his trade value, to be honest. Yeah, you know what I mean? And so, but now I don't know that that's in the best interest of the Broncos to move him. And I think that'll be interesting. Obviously, if you get a good deal, you take that. But I think Melvin Gordon is probably here for the long run, and then there's probably a messy divorce in the offseason. I agree with that. Trade him or keep him. Number 3, KJ Hamler.
Keep him. I think you got to keep him, right? If we're talking about trading Jerry Jeudy, I feel like the opportunities in this offense hasn't been there for KJ, right? And it's probably because there's so many other guys that, Russell and Brett can throw the football to. But KJ Hamler is a very capable guy. He has a lot of speed. I think we have to try to get him the football. So if you're going to trade Jerry, I think you got to keep KJ. KJ can stretch the field too. So, I want to see him more involved. Yeah. How can you see him more involved? Somebody has to go.
I also think that your return is not going to be that great for KJ Hamler. No. Certainly not going to be what it would be for Jerry Jeudy. So I'm with you. You keep KJ Hamler, trade Jeudy, and go from there. Maybe that opens things up. Maybe we see a side of KJ that we haven't seen before. Yeah. And obviously, knock on wood, he's done a decent job of staying healthy this year. So I think that helps as well. All right, final trade him or keep him. Albert Okwuegbunam.
I think you keep. What are you going to get for Albert?
Right.
What are you going to get for Albert?
I think they're going to end up cutting him.
Yeah, I think that's what's
I think you're going to get a 6th or 7th round pick at most,
if that.
And you might not even get that because I think that other teams around the league are looking at this. He's been a healthy scratch now twice. Yeah. The only way he's getting on the field is if somebody in that tight end room gets hurt. Right. And even then, he's the last guy on the field when you're talking about Tomlinson and Dulcich and Saubert. So I think that you're not going to get much for Albert Okwuegbunam because the other teams are going to know, why would I trade for him and give up a pick?
What is his value?
Yeah.
What has he really proved on the field that, okay, we need to get something from this for this guy, or we need to give up something for this guy. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't either, unfortunately. Yeah. And Albert's my guy in my ZZOU, but that's unfortunate what has happened there. And hey, shout out to Greg Dulcich. He's played really well. 9 receptions, 51 yards yesterday. So Dulcich is doing what he was drafted to do.
I just put a claim in for him, fantasy football.
Look at you. Look at you.
I got to do something.
Just jumping on the fantasy football after just rubbing it in my face this whole segment early after you beat me again last week. All right, let's jump into our report card. Today's report card brought to you by the Colorado Lottery. Play CBS 4, pick the score for your chance to win $1,000 in scratch tickets. Enter at cbscolorado.com/contest. I'm going to go first here. I'm going to hand out a grade to Jerry Jeudy. I'm going to give him a B. 96 yards yesterday, second highest total of the season. The question is, Brandon, can we get more of this moving forward? Yeah. And again, I talked about it with Melvin Gordon, maybe a guy who was upping his trade value. I think Jerry Jeudy upped his trade value yesterday. And so I think if you're the Broncos, you want to strike when the iron's hot. maybe Jerry has a good game in London, and then all of a sudden you can trade him and get something in return.
I actually agree with that because it seemed like he was playing hard, he was doing well, he was wide open. He probably saw, the trade rumors. He's like, okay, let me turn it up a little bit. So he looked like he turned it up. Hopefully he continues that.
Because if I'm Jerry Jeudy, I don't necessarily want to be here right now.
No.
Right?
Exactly.
And if I can get traded to a team that's a contender and maybe go play and look, it's not working no matter who the quarterback has been. Yeah. So if I can go play with a quarterback that I like, and for whatever reason, he's got a really good rapport with Brett Rippon. We saw that back in 2020 when Brett made his first start against the Jets. So I think that Jerry Jeudy knew what was going on. I expect him to have a good game in London too, and then we'll see what happens and whether or not he gets traded.
Absolutely.
Who are you handing out a grade to?
I'm going to give out a grade to the Broncos run game. I'm going to give him a D. When you have a backup quarterback in, right, his best friend is a run game.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to open up seams. You got to allow the team to run. Now, they had a good drive where they ran the football, okay, I think on the drive that Latavius scored. Yeah. But other than that, Melvin averaged 3 yards a carry. Latavius averaged 3 yards a carry. They didn't do Brett. They did him a disservice. Which is part of the reason he had to throw it 46 times. I wish they was able to supplement the game with a nice run game to help him out, allow him to feel comfortable. But he had to throw the ball a lot, so it didn't look good. I know the Jets front seven is good. It's really good. But the Broncos run game, give him a D.
And, we talked earlier about George Paton and how he's kind of flown under the radar here in terms of the blame. Yeah. This offensive line has really flown under the radar because everybody's so quick to point at Russell Wilson and now obviously Nathaniel Hackett. This offensive line has not been good. They have taken a step back under Butch Berry. I think that another knock on Nathaniel Hackett was getting rid of Mike Munchak, the offensive line coach, who raised every single player in that room. Right. He helped raise their game, none more so than Garrett Bowles. And now obviously Garrett is injured, but you're seeing a real step back from that offensive line group. And it's kind of gone under the radar a little bit, but I think that's been a big issue for this team. 100%. And I think George Paton deserves some blame there too because he hasn't done enough to help shore up that offensive line.
Absolutely.
All right, when we come back, it's time to zoom around the league. We'll tell you what stood out to us from yesterday's action in the NFL, and of course, our fantasy draft. And B. Marsh tying things up after another big week. All that and more next, right here on Upon Further Review with B. Marsh and Michael, presented by Underdog Fantasy. Travel consideration is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing app in the industry. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. Welcome back to Inside Upon Further Review with B. Marsh and Michael, presented by Underdog Fantasy. Glad to have you with us here on CBS News Colorado and wherever you get your podcast. It is time now for us to zoom around the league. Zoom around the league brought to you by ZoomCare. Visit ZoomCare.com to learn more about their Beyond Better urgent and primary healthcare clinics in Denver and in Boulder. B. Marsh, how about the Chiefs? Bouncing back in a big way yesterday. That was kind of one of the premier games in the afternoon slot. I had no doubt that the Chiefs were going to bounce back. I didn't think they would bounce back that impressively, but I was really impressed with what I saw from Kansas City. They continue to prove to me that they are the class, certainly of the AFC West, and then you got the Bills out there in the AFC. Right. Gosh, I'm just praying for another postseason matchup between those two teams.
Yeah, we got to see it. And I thought they would play well, but to put up 44 on the league's #1 defense, I didn't see that coming. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy, right? They played fantastic. A lot of people tuned in to see what happened with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers, but it was the Chiefs that stole the show.
Yeah, I thought that was really impressive. Another big one, the Bucs losing to the Panthers.
But
what?
In a horrible fashion, though.
Yes.
What's up with the Bucs? They scored 3 points on Carolina. Okay, I know, granted, Mike Evans dropped a huge pass. But at the same time, the Bucs looks like they're fizzling out on offense. They're trying to say that Tom is not as engaged, but I don't know what's going on. The chemistry looks terrible. For the Bucs to put up 3 with Tom Brady and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Leonard Fournette, that is crazy to me.
Yeah, Tom's obviously got a lot of stuff going on. That offensive line is not certainly what it used to be. Yeah. The Mike Evans drop, it was so bad, right? But it's early in the game, and I think that just kind of swung the momentum and was a microcosm of what ended up happening to Tampa Bay. It's just weird when things like that happen, But after he dropped that pass, I mean, they almost had no hope offensively.
Now I get it because dropping those wide open passes, sometimes they're tough to catch, right? I had one in high school. Okay, I'm gonna go there. I had one in high school. It was wide open in our homecoming game, and I dropped the ball.
Oh, no.
It was an easy touchdown, and I was like, oh my God. So I understand. Okay, I get it, Mike. I get it, but. He's making millions. I wasn't.
Yeah. What year was that? 07?
06.
06. And
yeah,
here you are
06,
still holding on to it. 10
I'll never
plus,
forget it.
15
Never
years
forget it.
later. Oh, that's crazy. Shout out to the Giants.
Yeah.
6-1 now.
Which is
I mean,
wild.
that's crazy. Brian Daboll's done a really, really nice job with that team. Yes, they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, who aren't very good, but that is still 6-1 for
Coach
the
of
New
the
York
year?
Giants. I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
He's certainly in the conversation if this continues. Obviously, they're going to lose more than just one game. But, yeah, what he has done with that team, basically the same players.
Right.
And obviously Saquon comes back and is having a really good year. But, yeah, really, really impressed with what he has done there.
Yeah.
On the other side, what is going on with the Green Bay Packers? That's one of the teams that the Giants have beaten. Now they've lost 3 straight.
Yeah.
Giants, Jets, and Commanders.
Which is nuts.
Yeah.
Right? Giants, Jets, and Commanders.
That's bad.
That
they
is
put
bad.
all their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket. Devontae leaves, and all of a sudden I think you're finding out one guy in the NFL, even though he's a really good Hall of Fame quarterback, can't do it all by himself.
No, and Devontae Adams is a difference maker.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
he's a difference maker because now without him, they're struggling. They're struggling in the receiving core. Their defense is still pretty good, but the offense can't move the ball and sustain drives. So the defense on the field, and look, the longer the defense on the field, there will be holes. The other offense will find holes, but to lose to the Commanders' backup quarterback, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't know that Green Bay's going to get it right. I mean, far be it from me to cast out on Aaron Rodgers, but it certainly is not looking good. All right, let's get into this week's Underdog Fantasy Draft. Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It is also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Speaking of fastest growing, you are climbing up the standings like crazy. 3 straight wins.
Yes, sir.
You know, that first win that you got was kind of a fluke. It was by like 0.9 points.
Yeah.
The last 2 have just been absolutely dominant.
Yeah.
So anyway, hopefully we can mix up the mojo here. We're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of focusing on just one game, we're going to focus on Thursday night football and Monday night football. And so we got a couple teams to choose from here. We've obviously got the Bears and the Patriots playing on Monday night football. And then we've got the Ravens and the Bucks playing on Thursday night football. So that being said, let's jump into our draft. I have the option of going first this week. Maybe that'll mix things up for me. And when you go first and Lamar Jackson is on the board, you take Lamar Jackson, plain and simple. Lamar Jackson, #1 overall pick.
You got to take him. He can run it and throw it.
No doubt.
I mean, come on. My next 2, I'm going to go with Leonard Fournette.
Okay, playoff Lenny. Yeah.
Playoff Lenny. Hopefully he does his thing. And I'm going to go with Mark Andrews, Lamar's favorite target. So if Lamar does well, then I should do well.
Right.
So
I need Lamar to run the ball in or to throw it to somebody else. Okay, you're going playoff Lenny. I'm going to go Mike Evans. I think he's going to make up for that drop. I think that they put up some points against Baltimore's defense. Give me Mike Evans with my next pick. And then I'm going to go David Montgomery as well to round out that section of picks for me. So Mike Evans and David Montgomery. That leads the floor back over to you.
Good picks. You know what? I'm going to go my next 2. I'm going to go with Tom Brady.
Okay.
I have him on my real fantasy, team, and he's been terrible. Right? So hopefully, he bounces back on Thursday night, and then I'm going to go with Ramondre Stevenson. The Patriots love to run the football.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll get a couple touchdowns, another 100 yards.
Certainly against that Bears defense, that is obviously very doable. I'm going to round things out, go with Chris Godwin. I like Tom Brady to bounce back. I like Mike Evans. I like Chris Godwin. And so I'm going to get some points. You're going to get some points. And then we'll see how it all shuffles out. That is going to do it for this week's Upon Further Review of B. Marshall and Michael, presented by Underdog Fantasy. For my partner, Brandon Marshall, for our editor and producer extraordinaire, Kevin Harper, I'm Michael Spencer. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We will see you next week after the Broncos and the Jags get it on in London. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store.